I breed my own chickens. So today we're going to look at why I choose to do that, what my process is for choosing chickens that I'm going to move forward with in my flock, and what my goals are with the breeding, and like why bother to breed your chickens at all. So let's have a look at why I choose to breed my own chickens. One of the main reasons why I choose to breed my own chickens is so that I can maintain a closed flock. So what that means is that no new chickens come into my flock that haven't originated from this property right here. And that is a really good thing to do for a disease management perspective. So the riskiest time for introducing a disease to your flock is by bringing chickens in from somewhere else and introducing them to your flock. And if those birds happen to be carrying anything, they're going to give it to your own birds. And it also helps me to not have to wrangle around with any integration of new birds. Every new bird that arrives here has been hatched right here and grows up in the flock and just integrates naturally over time. So I reduce any disease risk to my flock as much as I possibly can. And I don't have to worry about multiple different pens and runs and coops while they're all getting used to each other. Breeding my own chickens gives me control over when and how I want to increase the numbers in my flock. So if I am buying chicks from a hatchery, which I actually can't do here in New Zealand, but if you're buying from a hatchery or a breeder or a farm store, you don't have control over what sort of chickens are available to you and necessarily the time of when they're available to you. You're sort of stuck on somebody else's schedule. But if I breed my own, then I can choose how many eggs that I'm going to set. I can choose the time of year that I'm going to do that. And because I have so many broody hens almost all the time, which we're going to talk about in a moment, but because of that, I have a lot of choice around the timing, so I can plan my flock numbers and what ages they're going to be at different times of the year. I am trying to develop my own sort of type of chicken. So I'm not trying to create a whole new breed, but I am trying to work towards a type of chicken that works well for my property and my climatic conditions and the way I like to do things. And there are lots and lots of purebred chicken breeds that you can choose, and you can breed them and keep going with that breed. And that's really valuable because we don't want to lose those purebred heritage chicken genetics. But I chose to mix those genetics, and I've done that for a few reasons. And one of those reasons is, like I've just mentioned, I want to develop a type of bird that works well here, but also a lot of the lines of purebred chickens are very, very inbred. They've lost a lot of genetic diversity over time. I mean, these breeds have been around for a couple of hundred years, and they've been often bred quite in a closed way, particularly here in New Zealand. The purebred lines, there's not a lot of diversity happening there. So by crossing them together and hybridizing them, I am introducing a lot more genetic diversity, and I'm then able to select the direction that I want to go in with the type of chicken I'm developing here. With all that being said, I think the most compelling reason why I like to breed my own is because chicks are adorable. And I love having chicks in my flock every year. And because I am doing a genetic diversity goal at the moment, I have no idea what kind of chicks are going to hatch. So they could be all sorts of different colors, and it's really exciting to see what kind of chick is going to hatch from each egg and watch those adorable little chicks run around growing up with their flock. So that's probably my most motivating reason why I like to do my own chickens here. Let's look at how I run my breeding program. So my chickens all live together all the time. They don't get separated out, so all the roosters, all the hens, they're just cruising around. So that makes it a little bit complicated to know exactly who, what, when, where, and how babies are coming. But what I do is I select and keep a mature flock rooster, and he stays for several years. And then I bring in other roosters. And by bring in, I mean hatch in the flock. And if I need new genetics, I bring in eggs from elsewhere instead of my own eggs. And then that rooster will hatch out. I will choose to keep that one, and he will stay in the flock for a year or two to be able to produce hens that are not related to the mature flock rooster or some of the other hens that are around. So from that perspective, I keep the genetic diversity quite high, and the hens will choose a rooster that they think is the best, and that usually will be a rooster that they are not related to. I don't know how that works, but that is generally how it works out here in my flock. If they have rooster choices, they seem to be quite capable of making good choices for themselves. So for example, in my flock right now, I have a mature older rooster who doesn't contribute much to the genetic gene pool at the moment. Now, I have kept his son, and he is one of the main breeding roosters, but because he has got a generation of pullets that he has fathered, I have kept a completely unrelated rooster that I've hatched out from eggs that came from somewhere else, and he is a Faverolles rooster, and we're going to talk about why I have him a little later. So he is going to be available to the hens as a breeding choice, and because he has some quite different features from my other chickens, I'm going to be able to know with a pretty good degree of certainty that he has been the father of certain chicks. So that is how I like to do it, so I really can keep a handle on who's related to who, but without having to close everything down and keep flocks in different pens, which just gets complicated and expensive. In terms of choosing which chickens that I want to continue the genetics of in the flock, what I do is I select eggs from particular hens that I want to move forward with, and I set those eggs under broody hens. So I don't let my flock just breed at will entirely. Yes, all of my chicks are hatched and raised under broody hens, but those hens may not be their genetic mothers. I do select specific eggs that I want to hatch. I don't just let the hens make those choices on their own, but that's really the only control I put into the situation. Once the eggs have gone under the hen, all I do is check the nest each day to make sure there's been no breakages and to remove any non-viable eggs, but I do not remove any eggs to an incubator. I just leave it there. So natural selection is operating. Only eggs that are capable of hatching out under completely natural circumstances are going to hatch to be chicks to continue on in the goals that I have for my flock. There will be lots of boys as well as lots of girls when you're breeding chickens. You pretty much come out at a 50-50 ratio if you've hatched enough, but you may well end up with a season where you have a lot more boys hatch than girls. And that is something that you need to have a plan for if you're going to look at breeding your own chickens. You can only have so many roosters in a flock, and depending on how many hens you have, that could be more than 1 or 2 roosters, but you can't have equal numbers. It is not going to work out. You're going to be miserable and your flock is going to be miserable. So here, the excess boys or the surplus boys, they get raised up till they're 4, 5, 6 months old, just depends on how they're behaving, but generally they behave pretty well. And then they go to be food for people. And that just keeps the whole little cycle moving, but that is the reality of breeding. You cannot keep them all. I also don't keep all of the girls that I breed, but they, because they lay eggs, do find homes elsewhere. Some of my roosters do find flock homes. I always try and find them a home where they can have their own flock first, and I'm fairly successful with that, but you have to face the reality that when you have girls, you have boys, and they need to go somewhere. So what are my personal breeding goals for my flock? Where am I trying to head with what I'm doing? Well, I've got a few things on my list of goals I'm trying to achieve. So I'll talk to you about them, and then I will tell you how I'm doing with making progress towards those goals. I'm selecting for large chickens with a big chunky body type, so they are good for dual purpose, both eggs and meat. I am selecting for chickens that are good under the circumstances that I like to keep them. So that is 24/7 free range, foraging for a percentage of their own food, and able to hatch out under natural conditions. And because I want them to be able to hatch out under natural conditions, I am selecting for egg quality. So that is eggshell quality being strong, and I have particular ways I want the eggshell to be. And when you select for egg quality for hatching chicks, it also makes an egg that is just phenomenal for eating purposes. So that is a main thing. It's kind of top of my priority list is egg quality, because a lot of the breeds that I have brought into my flock haven't had very good egg quality. They're hard to hatch, their eggs are kind of meh from an eating perspective, so that is one of my top goals. I want my hens to go broody so they can hatch their own chicks, but I don't want them to be excessively broody, which is a very fine line, and it's hard to achieve that balance. And I also want my hens to be able to lay well for multiple years. Now, I don't mean they have to lay 300 eggs a year every year for years and years, but I do want them to be able to lay 150 to 200 eggs each for at least 3 to 4 years, so that they're really offering a lot of value in the flock. With those goals in mind, where am I at right now? Well, I have achieved big. My chickens are really big. They got so big that I've decided to maybe go in a slightly smaller direction. So that is what I'm currently working on. They hatch well naturally, and they are thriving in this 24/7 free range situation. And my latest round of pullets are laying great eggs with fantastic egg quality. Now, you've probably heard me say in other videos that I have hens that like to go broody a lot. So I have achieved they do go broody, but I haven't achieved a good balance on that yet. I would say that my hens go broody way too often. They're very much like a bantam in that regard, and bantams are known for going broody a lot. So quite a few of my hens will try to go broody like 4 or 5 times a year, and I would really like that to be down to maybe twice a year per hen. Would just make things a bit easier to manage for me. So that is definitely what I am working on. So where I am at in terms of just the big picture is I have created something that is called a Grex. So that is Grex. And that is where you have created a very genetically diverse population from which to start to select from and narrow that genetic selection back down so you're moving in a specific direction. So I'm at lots of genetic diversity in my flock, lots of variety, lots of things happening, and I now need to start selecting into these specific directions to meet my goals. So what I'm currently working on is bringing the size of the chickens down a little bit and trying to reduce how often they go broody. And to do that, I have introduced a different breed of rooster, a salmon Faverolles. So he is a smaller bird, a smaller bodied bird, but he's still chunky. He's just sort of like a small version of the big chunky birds that I like. So I'm hoping that he will bring the size down in the next generation. And Faverolles do not go broody. So I'm hoping that his genetics injected into my flock will help to bring the broodiness level down. But broodiness is something that's very tricky to breed for in a way that you're going to get a result quickly. So I'm going to keep working on that into the future. There are many, many ways to enjoy having a chicken flock, and you definitely don't need to breed your own chickens. And if you did want to breed your own chickens, it's totally fine and even preferable in a lot of instances to just choose an already existing breed and dedicate yourself to that breed to continue it on into the future. You don't have to just try and make your own type like I am doing. but I really enjoy what I'm doing and I'm really interested to see where I get to in the future. So whatever you choose to do, whether that is just enjoying your flock as it is or choosing to dabble in breeding, I hope you enjoy your process and enjoy your chicken flock.